I just want to announce that Barry Hess is also running. Barry had back surgery, and so he's laid up in bed. He was planning on making it here tonight, but he was not able to because of his back surgery. So we have Noah Dyer and we have Merissa Hamilton running. And I'd like, if we could keep it quiet in here, so I'm going to give these guys the floor to kind of talk about 3, 4, 5 minutes about the candidacy. And then we're going to have kind of a session after that, which is a Q&A. And I've got some questions prepared already. And I'm going to ask those questions, but anyone who wants further clarification on the questions, just raise your hand and ask your question. So Noah, I'm going to let you go first. If you can tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're running.
About myself. All right. So my name's Noah Dyer. I have a national and even international headlines because of my unique approach to campaigning, in particular as it relates to campaign transparency and honesty. The big takeaway from that is if I say something, whether it's about myself or whether it's about a political situation, you can trust that it is so. So as far as individual issues go, I am a former school teacher and college professor, so I care a lot about education, and we can do things here in Arizona for education that do not involve any additional tax dollars. So we can do better by our public school students with the money that we already have. Additionally, I care very much about equality. You are probably aware that here in Arizona, outside of Maricopa County, you can fire somebody and say, I am firing you because you are gay, and there is no recourse for that. So equality and a statewide Equal Opportunity Act is something that I would be very much in support of. And the economy. We have had governors and other politicians who have portrayed us nationally as being anti-immigrant, anti-diversity, and that hurts our economy and our national perception. And that's not the reality on the ground. We know that here in Arizona, the average person is very accepting of other people. But because our politicians haven't paid us that way, we pay the price economically for people that sometimes put sanctions on us or otherwise choose not to locate here. And so by addressing all these issues holistically, I hope to bring change to Arizona. So I know there'll be time for questions later. So that's a basic overview of me and my campaign, and I look forward to hearing what's on your mind.
You know me. I am Merissa Hamilton. I'm the vice chair of the Maricopa County Libertarian Party. I ran last election cycle as a write-in for the U.S. Senate race when our official U.S. Senate candidate got kicked off the ballot from the Republican. So I have experience running a race. I initially was going to go for a more local race, but with the help of Dell and many other family rights advocates, we were able to get SB 1003 passed, which was the warrants bill for seizing children. And so that gave me the opportunity to really look at all the different races that we had. And the next thing that we need to do to be able to secure children's rights is have a strong children's rights candidate for governor. I am not a one-issue candidate, though. There's many issues that I support. I support liberty for everyone up until it violates the liberty of someone else. And just a little bit about my background. I am a business professional. I'm a seasoned business professional with a 15-year track record of managing large departments and large organizations. I've run national initiatives for the food service industry. I manage some of the largest companies around the world and help figure out solutions for them. And that's within the scope of the limitations and the hardships that government provides with all their regulations and laws and whatnot. This campaign is going to be a solution-oriented campaign. This campaign is not going to be about the negativity that we often hear from the duopoly candidates. This campaign is going to be about solutions to solve our problems that we have. For the top issue that most people know me about, and I just want to say thank you for all the people that came and supported me. If you are here from an invitation that I gave you, would you please raise your hand? Thank you so much. If you are here from an invitation I gave you and you are not a libertarian, please raise your hand. So, and the reason why I did that is because I wanted to show you that I've been working hard since the last campaign. I didn't just sit at home and do nothing. I have been working to find people that we can partner with that are excited about liberty regardless of their party affiliation. And that's really important to me because as the previous conversation we saw, we're not going to win this just with libertarians. We need our ideas to reach everyone in our state, everyone nationwide, and everyone around the world. And I learned that in my last campaign because I now have a fan base of 37 countries. Small fan base, but it's still 37 countries. And in addition to that, I have a fan base of people from all different parties and people that have never cared about politics whatsoever. And that's important for the Libertarian Party. As your governor candidate, I promise, just as I did when I ran for U.S. Senate as a write-in candidate, I will be traveling all over the state promoting liberty. I will be supporting all of the downline candidates, everyone that I possibly can. Doug Marks is running for U.S. Senate, for example. I've already been working on events with Mojave County, with Pinal County. This is important. Last week I went to Nevada to help save a baby that had been kidnapped from a family that had originally been in Arizona, and we were able to get her baby back. And I say that because it's important to me that we have a candidate for governor at the top of our ticket that's someone that's going to get things done. And this campaign is not just about politics and getting a message out, it's about getting stuff done. If we can't provide solutions while we run for office, what's the point of running? We need to be able to do both, and that's why I'm running for office. I'm running a professional campaign. Kat McKinney is my campaign manager. She's run 5 previous campaigns, both for Democrats and Republicans. I have Michael Cloud, who's a very prominent libertarian, as my senior advisor. He has looked at my campaign, and he thinks that we'll raise between $850,000 and $1 million. I will not be running on clean money. I will be getting actual clean money from you. In addition to that, my creative director is the notorious and infamous Jarrett Moffat, and he has been helping us to be able to strategize so that we can look across party lines to be able to attract people from everywhere to support the libertarian message. I also met in Tucson. Am I allowed to talk about our? Okay. So I also met, I wanted to make sure that I had the support of the core Libertarian Party, and I met with Elizabeth Nolan, the wife of the founder, yes, I'm Ruth Bennett, to get their support on my campaign to make sure that this was the right thing to do. And I have their support. So I have national support going into this campaign. We are going to run a strong campaign. We are going to run a campaign about creating opportunities for everybody, using libertarian principles to solve the problems. We're going to run a campaign about moving towards voluntary government instead of taxation. That's theft. And we will be running a strong campaign message teaching everyone why taxation is theft. So please support my campaign.
Easy question. Are Arizona taxes too high?
Yes.
Okay. So, Merissa, do you want to go first and explain that real quick?
Sure, but I think that's a little unfair to know if you're in a libertarian house. The reason why Arizona taxes are too high is because taxation is theft. And so any amount of money that is put into that's taken in taxes is not given voluntarily. It's taken by force. It's taken by fraud, and it's taken by coercion. And I can tell you for certain that there are parents in this room that have suffered from our taxation process and they have lost their children over it. Our taxes today, what they do is they steal our money, they put it in Social Security, they steal our Social Security, and then they use it to steal our kids. Taxation is theft. I do not support taxation.
Okay. Thank you.
I agree that taxation can be theft. One of our biggest expenses here in Arizona is prisons, private prisons. And so I obviously do not support all taxation, but there are also taxes that create benefit for us, and they do it efficiently. Yes, if we wanted to build a road, we could poll each person individually, but taxes is a structure by which everybody enjoys the benefit. It's fairly simply. The problem that we have with taxation right now is that the poor in Arizona are taxed at a greater percentage of their income than the wealthy. And we should level that out so that everybody pays. I am for a flat tax.
Okay, thank you very much. Next question, I'm gonna get a little bit more specific on this. Yeah, hold it back into the very end.
No, it's okay. She beats me, I can handle it.
No, no.
I gotta feel out the room.
Let me just say this right now, and again, obviously we're most of the attorneys in the room, but the point is, it's the idea that people running for office actually answer questions. To me, that's significant when there's just so much, basically not saying anything. It's a lot of politicians say things, but they don't mean anything by those words. These guys actually are answering the questions, which I give them a lot of credit for. Okay, so let's get a little bit more specific. Would you sign a bill, remember this is a yes, no, or not sure. Would you sign a bill abolishing the state income tax? Okay. Noah, do you want to go first this time?
It would have to be replaced with some other form of revenue generation. I don't think the state can run on no money. But I think income tax is an inefficient way of doing things.
Okay. Merissa?
In my opinion, the state income tax is the most immoral of any of the taxes that we have. And I would absolutely abolish it. There is going to be a referendum, I believe, that is going to move to abolish our income tax. There is a plan to be able to have voluntarily fund government, and we need a path to do that. And my campaign will be releasing 3 different components of that plan to move us towards voluntarily funded government and eliminate the income tax. And by the way, our citizens are the ones that are going to do it.
Okay, very good. The next question I'm not going to ask because they both answered the same on there, but I'm going to modify it a little bit. Are there some taxes in particular that are fairer than other taxes that if it was presented to you as governor, you may sign that bill? So for instance, user fees or maybe some type of tax on certain commodities. Is there anything that you would say would be a more appropriate way to tax? Not sure. Okay.
The way it was phrased, I know my answer.
Is there a more appropriate way to tax than income tax, I guess? Yes, okay. So, Merissa, you can go for it. Okay.
Yes, so there is a more appropriate way to tax besides income tax, and that's called a voluntary fund. I am not opposed to people voluntarily funding government services if they choose to do so. I don't think I should control people's money and how they want to spend it, and if people think that government is a worthy investment, they should be allowed to do so.
Okay.
I do think we need greater than voluntary taxation, only because it would allow people to escape our group benefits, and it would put an undue burden on certain individuals in that regard. I will say that I'm against vice taxes, and I'm against taxes that, so I think court fees and things like that are also tend to be disproportionately assessed and things like that. So I think there's a better way to do taxation, but it can't be completely voluntary.
Okay. Would one of the types of taxes you would support, would you support a death tax? Let's just put it like that. Yes?
Death or debt?
Death.
Okay.
Inheritance tax of some sort. Estate tax. Would you support an estate tax? Okay. Who went first last time? Okay, so Noah said yes.
I think one of the most in our society and with our current expectations for property rights, parents generate a lot of wealth and then can set their kids up to live well without contributing anything. I don't think that is in the best society. I don't think that a parent's or a grandparent's hard work should foster inactivity or even misbehavior in future generations. And so I think the wealth that you generate should largely be protected, but across generations, I support taxation of self-made people.
Okay, Merissa?
I do not support a death tax, and I can give you a good example why. There's a company that I had the honor to work for and run a very large project for them nationally, called Services Group of America, or Food Services of America. They are an Arizona-based company, but they were a Seattle-based company. They moved precisely because of the death tax. The founder had enough vision to understand that death tax was going to divide his company and there would be nothing left. And there would be thousands, probably somewhere between 2,000 to 4,000 jobs around the country that would have been lost over that tax. And so he moved to Arizona. Arizona has benefited from this multi-billion-dollar company. I personally benefited from being employed and being able to work on some amazing projects. And Washington has suffered the consequences.
Okay.
Question,
Was there a question?
Oh,
or a hand raised.
yeah, I just wanted Noah to clarify his statement about reckless or misbehavior from, for lack of better term, classroom babies.
Yes, I just think that transferring vast sums of wealth across generations is not a feature that the best society will have. The best society will support those people who work hard, as opposed to.
Okay.
Are you aware that 80% of today's millionaires are first generation rich who made their own money?
Which I'm in full support of. I'm only specifically in support of millionaires who are not first generation.
Okay, I think Noah's pretty clear on that position.
Am I able to counter?
No.
If she counters, I've got to counter.
No, he was just explaining his position in a little bit more detail. But going into the taxes a little bit more before we move on to another subject, Governor Ducey just signed a $9.8 billion budget. That's the new budget that he signed. Do you think that budget properly funds the state? Should it have been bigger? I have to ask you a yes or no, I guess. Is that budget appropriately sized for what the state does? Is it appropriately sized? Not sure, and not sure. Okay, so let me detail that a little bit more. Do you think Arizona's state government spending is too high? Not sure. No. Okay. No, why don't you go first and say why it needs to be a little bit higher?
You said it's too high, and I said
It's not too high.
I don't actually think it needs to be higher.
Okay.
I think it's a livable budget. I think we can do okay with 9.8 billion. I think we can do well with more. One of the biggest things that I think we should do if we had more money would be to pay off our 60 billion in state debt, which is a tax on all of our kids.
Okay. Merissa?
I am currently, last week I went out to California to meet with an economist. I specifically am meeting with an economist that supports Keynesian economics because I wanted to look at the plan that I have, that's a libertarian plan, and be able to have someone to debate it with. When I looked at our state budget, I found that there was many areas that we should not be funding. I call them non-essential services. And then there are some areas that the people of Arizona would probably consider essential services, and that's up for debate, especially from a libertarian perspective. I'm saying not sure because I haven't finished that analysis, and I want to make sure that I have the right experts involved so that I can make an educated decision before I would answer something like that.
Okay. So let me go into a little bit more detail on the budget too. As part of the budget, there was a 2% increase for teachers across the state of Arizona. Is that, let me put it this way, is that enough of an increase in next year's spending for teachers, 2%? Not sure? And not sure, okay. Do either of you want to speak on that, the not sure part, Merissa?
The reason why I said not sure is I have attended some of the meetings that I think our county superintendent or state superintendent, I can't remember the name of the position, to hear what's happening with teachers and listen to how they feel. And teachers definitely feel like they've been disrespected in Arizona and that their pay isn't high and they don't have a livable wage. And I understand that. But the reason why I say not sure is because what we need to look at is we need to look at the way money is being allocated towards public schooling. I personally don't think public schooling is the best possible way to educate our children, especially for the future. When we look at trends, we see that there's a lot of jobs that are being replaced by machinery and things like that. And so I think that rather than specifically just looking at teacher pay, we need to actually broaden that and look at education in general. Find and determine what's the right education for our Arizona students, because right now, as soon as they graduate high school, they're not going to be able to find a job. And for the kids that are starting school right now, the world's going to look very different than what it looks like right now. And rather than necessarily just squabbling over teacher pay, I think instead we should look at what our education system today is doing. It's burdening teachers. Teachers aren't able to be effective at teaching. They're not able to to work with their students in the way that they think is most effective, especially on an individual basis. And I think that's actually the right thing we need to look at. And then from there, we'll find what the answer to teacher pay is.
Okay.
I agree with about 75% of what was said. I think while I am not a regulation is bad person, I do think our education system is definitely one area where there has been over-regulation, and it's created the situation that was discussed. Average household income in Arizona is $61,000. Average teacher pay is $35,000, meaning if you get two teachers together in the same household, they make more than median income together. While we may debate whether or not it's unfortunate, we've got a lot of other people that we need to do right by economically before we increase teacher pay. If Arizona supported it, I would absolutely support it as well. My dad's a teacher, my aunt's a teacher, I've been a teacher. But the real problem is that we are asking families, more than half of families, to do with far less than what a two-teacher household would do.
Okay, thanks guys. Any questions, any follow-up on that? Okay, so you mentioned regulation. Do you think Arizona businesses are over-regulated from a state level?
I think there are almost certainly instances of that being true, but I think it would be on I'm not ready to make the blanket statement, businesses are over-regulated or businesses are under-regulated. I think that's more of a per industry question.
Okay, I should have asked you for the thing. You said yes. Okay, not sure, maybe?
And yeah, not sure.
Not sure, and then a yes. Okay.
Yes, as a business professional and someone that's worked in several different industries at very high levels, I'm very familiar with the budgets and also the regulations that a company has to look at when they're looking at regulations and how to best serve their customers. There has not been a single industry that I've worked in or have customers in that did not have severe limitations that directly impacted their ability to serve their customers in a negative way. Even our Governor Doug Ducey ran an initiative this last year asking people to say what regulations we need to get rid of. That is something that I supported, and I do think that the fact that we have so many regulations is hurting Arizonans because it makes it hard for people to start businesses. We used to be a state that if you wanted to start a business, you came to Arizona, and that's not the case anymore, and we need to change that.
Okay, now sticking on the regulation part of it, this will again be yes, no, not sure. Should the minimum wage law be abolished? Ooh, okay. So, Merissa, you go first this time.
Sure. The minimum wage law needs to be abolished for several reasons. One, for someone like me, it impacts me in a negative way. And that's because of the fact that the minimum wage is set at this, but I'm able to perform here. And so my wage is automatically accounted for based on that, rather than allowing the freedom for me to negotiate directly with my employer. And I think Arizona is filled with a lot of people that are super talented, that are hardworking, that are being limited by their prosperity because of minimum wage laws. At the same time, I can look back to when I first came to Arizona and I had just graduated from high school, and part of my success is the fact that I was able to go and find jobs that were effective jobs, that were high-paying jobs, but they weren't willing to take a risk on me at first because they didn't have a college education, but they knew I was intelligent. And today, because of the minimum wage laws, companies can't afford to take a risk on someone like me. My entire opportunity, my entire success was based on the fact that I was able to negotiate directly with my employer, and now that the minimum wage has increased, companies don't want to take chances on people like me. And what would have happened if I was stuck in a low-end job and I couldn't afford school anymore? That would have completely killed my future. It would have killed the future for other people that are like me. And when I look at the millennials, it's harming them horribly. Their only option right now is to go into a huge amount of college debt and for degrees that don't necessarily end up being what they work in. And it's directly related in part to the minimum wage law. It hurts poor people. Also, just one other thing, sorry. It hurts poor people the most because when you take the minimum wage and you put it up to here, now companies have to be able to fund that. They have to increase their cost of goods, and those goods that end up being increased end up hurting the poor people that are now maybe making $15, but the spending power that they have is far less than what they had before minimum wage was increased.
Okay, Noah.
My problem with the minimum wage is that it doesn't address the problem that it's trying to solve. A minimum wage is meaningless unless there's a maximum wage, because there are myriad ways to erode that. You mentioned price controls already. There's the evaluation of the dollar, and blah, 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 blah. So a minimum wage, as proponents of the minimum wage have always found, becomes meaningless. You have to keep on chasing something else. So, if a livable wage is important, it would have to be achieved through some other means. I will say I am not against the idea that because somebody is human, they deserve a reasonable lifestyle, and that there are some people on this earth who are taking too much, which doesn't leave for others. So while I may not be supportive of a minimum wage as the vehicle for guaranteeing some income parity, I don't think it's the right tool.
Okay. I've got a series of questions here, so if we keep it 30 seconds on the response, that would be really great. But another question on regulation. Under the Affordable Care Act, Governor Brewer actually made Arizona part of the Medicaid expansion. Should Arizona pull out of the Medicaid expansion? Yes, no? Should we pull out of the Medicaid expansion? No, and not sure. Okay, Noah?
I have come out and even taken flack from some Democrats for not being just a total universal health care, spend money on health care as much as it takes kind of person. So I do think that there are limits to health care coverage. But that being said, I think we ought to be taking care of more people, not less. And I don't think a survival of the fittest, dog-eat-dog healthcare world is a feature of the best society. And you spoke earlier about people who moved around because they were trying to find a certain kind of society. And I think societies where people have high fear about their healthcare costs will not be competitive.
Okay, Merissa.
I do agree that societies where people have a great fear about healthcare is not going to be a competitive society, and it would hurt us in the long run. But I don't think Medicaid is the solution to solving that problem. Medicaid and all the things that we've seen with Obamacare and whatnot, that's just re-innovating insurance. And to me, insurance is a very archaic way of solving healthcare issues. It's really crony capitalism to me. And it actually hurts poor people because it props up the cost of medical procedures and medication and whatnot, rather than actually making quality health care affordable. I also do think at the same time that we do have people that need help. We have part of our society that needs extra help and needs extra support. And the reason why I said not sure is because I want to make sure that before we did anything, we had a path to solve that problem. I don't think that it's immoral to just rip out government funding and just leave people destitute without a path to be able to satisfy that. I will be releasing a plan for that. I've been working with a team of medical experts to solve that for actually the last month and a half now, and I'll be excited to release that. But I don't think Medicaid is the solution to make that happen.
Okay.
I will agree that the word Medicaid is not important to me. It's the notion of people being covered.
Okay. I did miss one question here. I want to go back when we were talking about schools. Are school vouchers an improvement over traditional public schools? School vouchers, are they an improvement over public schools? Okay. I think Merissa, you go first this time.
Sure. The reason why I said not sure is because I've spoken at length with, not spoken at length, let me correct that. I've read a lot of Arvin Gore's posts, and I've read a lot about this, about school vouchers and what this does. There's an opinion that school vouchers really represent more crony capitalism, and that they are propping up. There's a lot of complaints when I was listening to the folks at some of the county meetings that were going on about education, that when they look at the way it's being used, it's being misused, and it's not actually necessarily improving education. Now, while Arizona has some of the worst ranked schools in the nation, we have 4 out of 5 charter schools of the top schools in the nation for high schools, that's the basis system, that are ranked they have 4 out of the 5 of the top schools in the nation. And so what that means is that we're educating a few students really well, and we're not really educating the rest of them. I'm not convinced that vouchers are the way to go. I'm not convinced that it necessarily provides a better education for the people that need it. And I'd rather take, rather than just sticking it in like the duopoly solutions of public school versus vouchers, I think that we need to, again, take a look at what the challenges are and find better solutions. And I'm not convinced that vouchers are the way to do that.
That's Merissa, she gave it to her later. Okay, so let me ask you to clarify a little bit more, and if anybody has a question on this. Are you therefore in favor of competition in education? Yes, no, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't think I responded to that one either.
Yeah, he can answer his question.
And that's okay. Or I
When I say
am in favor of competition.
When I say competition, I mean competition with the public school system. Other forms of education come in and compete with the public school system. Okay. 2 yeses. Do either of you know, do you want to say anything about competition?
I'm sorry. First off, I'll say I largely agree with what she shared earlier, in that a $5,000 voucher, is not enough to cover the cost of private school. So it's still only accessible to people who are able to come out of pocket thousands of dollars. And private schools don't want thousands of students. They only want the hundreds of students they already have. So that $5,000 is going to go into a tuition raise so that the market clears. So vouchers are not a good system for that reason. As far as competition goes, I will say right now we have an unequal competition system. Basis is maybe great, but we can't know. And the reason why we can't know is because Basis gets to discriminate based off of achievement. Basis gets to kick students out who don't perform well, and they have to go to a public school, which then gets graded on that system. Basis also gets the same amount of dollars per head, but doesn't have to provide special ed, school lunch, school busing, or any of these other services. So whether or not Basis is doing a great job, I don't know. We don't have the data to show that because the system is totally opaque. Charter schools have to, they have to disclose their budgets, but they don't have to disclose what they actually spend. And we all know that those two things are not going to be the same. So if we can get charter schools and public schools playing on the same field and by the same rules, I'm absolutely supportive of competition. And there has always been competition within our public schools via magnet programs and other things. I think it's very important.
Do you have a question for Noah?
Not really, just a comment.
I have a question for Noah.
Okay.
In regards to specifically what you said, because what would your opinion be on maybe a compromise type situation where you have public charter schools? They do receive public funding, but they also receive funding from the parents. So it's not, instead of paying $5,000 to send your kid to a private school, you send $200 a year or $100 a year. And that
We
way
still
there's-
have that system in our tax credit system, where you can give an extra $400. And that system is kind of undermining, that ends up being a tax on poor schools. It gets transferred to rich schools or richer schools where parents can have that tax liability. I'm certainly open to anything like that. The bottom line of it is, if you're taking state money, kind of like clean elections and whatever else, you ought to be accountable to the state to some degree. And I support, and there are probably innovative schemes of the sort that you just mentioned that I would be supportive of.
Okay, Emily, do you have a point you wanted to make real quick?
Just for those who haven't been in and around the education world, we have quote-unquote open enrollment across district boundaries in Arizona. So any school that you can physically get your kid to any particular day, you can enroll your kid in. So the sort of traditional arguments from older states about property tax bases and schools and so forth generally do not apply here. So that's one piece. On your comment about charter schools and special ed and so on, very frankly, since the mid-90s, classroom teachers have been required to do quote-unquote fully inclusive special ed in Arizona. So there are not special ed programs for really compromised kids who need them now.
They
So,
exist, I think they are fewer and farther
as
between.
charter schools for kids who are pervasive developmental disorders or autism or
I mean, I don't know every single detail, but I know that Encanto and Clarendon schools attract people for their disabled accommodations and things like that, so.
Marissa, do you,
Sorry, can you ask me what the question was originally?
Um, it was, let's see here. We were talking about, well, let me phrase a new question because there's something I just want to ask real quickly based on what Noah was saying. Is education, both of you guys can answer, is education, do you believe education is a right? Do you have a right to education?
I'll give a kind of a libertarian answer, perhaps.
Yes, not sure. Okay, so why don't you answer that? Noah?
So within, I think that you could, honestly, I think you could go anyway on this question. It depends on where your viewpoint is. What I firmly believe are the rights that we declared in the Declaration of Independence. And one of those rights is the pursuit of happiness. Without education, we don't have a pursuit of happiness. Now, does that mean that we have a right to government-funded education? No, I don't believe that. And I don't even think it's the most effective way to educate our kids. And I do believe that we need to add competition. But do we have a right to have education from a perspective of should the internet be blocked so that people can't get education? No, I don't support that. Should we not allow people to publish free books if they want to publish free books? No, I don't support that. I think that we should be allowing free education if that's what people want to provide. Now, does someone have a right to take your money and give it to someone to educate their kids? No, but do they have a right to be educated as far as seeking it out themselves? Absolutely.
Okay. Noah?
Yep. So this is a little bit of a semantic answer, but I don't really think there are rights. There are only agreements that we choose to honor. So every human comes into this world, there's no divine external thing that grants us a right to education or healthcare or privacy or life or anything else. Just all things that are organized, all creatures have the right to strive for the things that they want and value. So I do think, having said that, I think a society, a group of people that gets together and says we all agree that education should be a public initiative, same with healthcare and a lot of these other things. Those are societies that will win as time moves forward. So I do think we should provide education, but I don't think there are some external mandate to do that. So
let me just expand on that. You said something pretty interesting here. So if we don't have a right to life, if there's no right, since there's more libertarians in this room, and we decided to take your life, is that acceptable? I mean,
no.
So
clearly,
do you have a right? So I'm asking you. So if you don't have a right to life, who decides for you that your life is worth living, or even?
Or if your life is taken, it's wrong.
Yeah. How do you determine that?
Again, I think I got into a semantic argument. So clearly, I don't think anybody should be taking anybody else. Or if it's not clear, let me state it. I do not think people ought to be free to take other people's lives. What I'm talking about is that notion of a right suggests that it comes from somewhere else other than our collective agreement to honor that. I don't think anything that we call a right comes from somewhere else. We get together and we say, you want your kids to be able to live, and I want my kids to be able to live, and you want your kids to be able to go to school, and I want mine, and healthcare, and privacy, blah, blah, blah. And so we call them rights, but they're really agreements between us that we choose to honor, and we hope they make our society better.
Go ahead.
Well, you're playing words with me a little bit.
That's what I said.
Yeah. This whole thing of rights, what you're saying is the whole basis of our Constitution is a bunch of crap and we should just go away and live our life.
I don't think I said that.
But you're saying rights don't exist, and that's what our Constitution is based on. The first 10 amendments are the Bill of Rights. And you may call them arbitrary agreements between people, but they're the same arbitrary agreements.
I don't mean to say they're arbitrary, I'm just saying that
they're the same arguments that have been used as natural rights for thousands and thousands of years to help society.
Yeah.
So now you're arguing with the fact that they really don't exist, and I agree, they don't exist, but we have to believe they exist. We have to enforce that they exist.
I believe we should, so yes, we agree that those rights or agreement, I don't want to get into men, so if it's important for me to call them rights, I will agree that this is important for our society to offer them.
Do we have a
But-
question?
yeah.
Okay, we have a couple questions. here. Go ahead.
Kind of a response real quickly to you said that you're wordsmithing. So let's just remember how we use the word right in other contexts. Are you right or wrong? So I think the way Noah was answering that question was, it ultimately comes down to an agreement process between human beings. We have a process per the Constitution for taking people's lives. That's the court system. That's theoretically what the court system does, is a bunch of people come together and decide, do you have the right to live? So just to kind of clarify the answer, this is a political environment. Wordsmithing is expected. On that note, I'm just going to, since I do have the floor for a moment, I'm going to piggyback on this particular topic. Noah, you're running a campaign on honesty. Right next to you, Merissa, you have spoken several times of several specific instances of things that you've done. Jim's even asked, what is the meaning, and he implied, what is the meaning of honesty? So that's my question for both of you. I'm just throwing it out there. What is the meaning of honesty? What is the difference between a fact, a fact and a truth, and how do generalizations and statistics play into your campaign?
We'll let you go.
Let's hang on one second. Hang on one second. That's a good question. That's a good question. This is something, it's like. Are you for hire? It's a good question, but let's answer it succinctly because we have two other questions here and we got some other things. So Merissa, you go first and Noah gets to think about it a little bit.
If I put you on the spot.
So that's a very philosophical question, obviously. When it comes to honesty, I would say that a component of honesty is transparency. It's something that we value strongly in the Libertarian Party. It's something we value and we highly regard when it comes to public officials. We can look up what the definition of honesty is, and I can't because my phone's right there. But, you know, this is probably something that you can compare to a relationship where one person thinks that by omitting information, but they didn't say lie, that's honesty. Other people think that by, by not omitting information that's important, then that's a lie. If I was to compare it to, for example, our family rights and children's rights, DCS thinks that it's not lying to omit information that's critical to a case to determine whether a parent should be innocent or not. I think that's lying. I think that's dishonest. So I guess I can best just give you different examples of what honesty is and what transparency is. The Libertarian Party values transparency, and I think that with transparency comes honesty. And that's my answer.
No.
There are probably lots of different, in any given context, there's probably lots of ways to be dishonest and only one way to be honest. So I think on some points, honesty is just an objective thing. You know, are humans causing climate change or are they not?
No, it's carbon, right?
Fair enough, yes. Humans don't do it, it's carbon. So, guns don't kill, people kill, all that sort of stuff. So, I think, the main point is you can give people that leads them closer to making right action or to understanding a thing, or you can give people information that takes them farther away from understanding a thing. And sometimes you can give literal facts. I'm trying to think. The media has done this a lot with me in particular. They've shared a statement that is true, but in context, it is absolutely and totally misleading. So
Can you finish your previous thought? You said you can give information that takes someone to understanding, and then you didn't.
Yeah.
You kind of trail off.
Sure. So I guess fundamentally, I think if you're being honest, you help people understand a thing or they leave you with better information and more comprehension than they came to you with. And I think dishonesty is to have somebody leave you with less comprehension.
Okay. Roger, we have about 15 minutes left. There was a question on rights.
Yeah, just a procedural question, I think, regarding the right to education. Your opinion is no. Merissa, if you want to respond to it, I'd be happy. But I think I know, being a libertarian, where you come from on this. But just in general, you said no with no on education. So what about rights in general? You were just specifying like how there's no real rights. And do you, the Bill of Rights, for example, do you really think that there's no fundamental right that shouldn't be, as far as the government position of passing laws saying where they're infringing speech or right to bear arms or whatever, education, whatever a right may be considered, where do you fall on? Do you think generally there's just no rights created?
I think, and I'm glad we're recording this because it puts me in a. So we compete in a cold, dark universe on this rock that's going around the sun. We compete against North Korea, we compete against China, we compete against the United States. Do I think people in North Korea are being denied something that somebody off this rock says that they deserve? No. This is a horrible place, and what's happening in North Korea is a horrible thing. But only ourselves could give them what we think people deserve. And the same is true here in the United States. So we have the things that we have because we've agreed that we want them. And right now people are trying to create new rights. The right to privacy is not, that word at least is not in anywhere in the Constitution. We find it because we value it, and we've agreed amongst ourselves that we have it. But it doesn't come out of the Constitution, at least not literally. Now people are talking about a right to health care. These are all things that we may agree we deserve, and we may begin calling them rights. But it is semantic. It is not because there is some truth out there that imposes that upon us. The truth is in competition, in natural selection.
Right, so to that point, don't you think that the fact that the constitutional rights, and particularly the Bill of Rights, is essential in that case?
Yes, absolutely. Let us be clear.
Specific rights.
No right that anybody in this room thinks that they have, at least constitutionally speaking, do I think we should deprive people of. I think we should people ought to have more. You know, I'm very interested in the idea of a livable wage. I think that people who get born into this earth probably ought to be treated nicely. I think all these sorts of things. So I think these are all good things. But I don't necessarily see that they are in the Constitution. And I got semantically caught up, but I want all these things. I will fight for all these things. I think they are, in the way everyone in this room is using it, they are our rights. They are agreements that should be made that we are morally opposed.
Okay, so I want to ask one further question, and we're going to move on because we're going to run out of time. But because Noah brings up, we're getting into kind of the weeds of philosophy here.
Yeah.
But so here's the question: it'd be yes, no, not sure. Do I have a right as an individual to revolt at any time that I feel that I'm basically being mistreated or put into a situation that violates my personal rights as I view them? Do I have a right to revolt? Do I have a right to revolution? Okay. I think that's consistent with what both of you guys said. But again, we can move on unless there's other questions on rights. Okay. Here's more of a pragmatic question. Should the state of Arizona sell off more public lands to help get rid of the debt that we owe? Should they sell off public lands to help with the debt? No and yes. Merissa, you go first.
So I'm not necessarily going to agree that we should sell off lands to get rid of the public debt. I think that's something that we need to look at as how to allocate it. It makes sense, but without doing any research to get rid of our public debt by selling off lands. This is kind of intertwined with the rights question. I don't believe government has rights. I believe individuals have rights, but government does not. And the right to property is something that is fundamentally given to individuals, not to government. And so therefore, I don't think government has the right to own any property, and therefore we should be getting rid of it. Most of Arizona is owned by the federal government or state lands. That's ridiculous. That completely infringes on the ability for us as citizens to be able to make better use of that land and to be able to even beautify it and improve on it. So, and I just want to clarify, I'm someone that's a strong supporter of our park system. I love parks. I love camping. My joy is going into the middle of nowhere and being able to camp out where no one can find me or anything, and I can just enjoy nature. So I'm not saying that I think that we should, have everything become like these mega corporations everywhere, but I just don't believe government has rights, and a fundamental right is the right to property.
Okay, Noah?
I can't conceive of a system whereby that money gets into private hands and Arizonans as a whole are benefited. So one of the big challenges that you have is the state's going to have to pick winners and losers. And if you just say economics, well then that favors people who are winners today versus people who haven't had a chance yet to make their mark on the world for whatever reason. So I have serious qualms with the idea that getting that property into private hands would do right by the majority of Arizona.
Okay, Doug had a question.
Yeah, I want to make a comment on your question. You're basing your statements on some government pragmatic thing that says we have public and private. There isn't such thing as public and private. There's owned and unowned. That's it. And so we have most of the state that's unowned land that we got this government standing around with guns saying, you can't touch this. Now we have, I come from Illinois and I've been elected before, and we had a parcel, a 280 acre parcel that this family owned, and they wanted to donate it to the county as a park. A gentleman stepped in and said he bought the land and accepted a lease agreement of 99 years of no development. Leave it public, leave it open land. And he agreed to that because he wanted that parcel to stay free. So there's lots of philanthropists in this world that want the same thing. They want the beauty of the world. They want the beauty of the country. And they will spend money to make sure it stays that way. So
But I guess that seems
and then
to
this
me
is a
what you
realistic
described as a kind of inefficient way. You know, you have sales and leases and whatever, or it could just be. But that's neither here nor there.
The government is the definition of inefficiency, and you want to bring more of it.
Can I add to that?
You can-
I'm sorry.
So with government, so when it comes to government owning land, and we can see it by a lot of the things that I've stood up for and a lot of the people that are here for. The fact that government can own land, they use it as a weapon against we the people. The fact that they're able to own land allows them to do things like say, we can have this mass prison system. And so then to justify the mass prison system, we need to then have all these victimless laws that no one gets hurt, but then we can cage people. We have a large amount of land that's being used right now to take kids without cause and without warrants and anonymously basically cage them. Where we have foster children that say that they feel like they've been in jail and that they're being abused and things like that. Land creates power, and when you put it in the hands of the government, it creates abuse. And that is the reason why I do not stand for government having any rights. I stand for the individual to have rights, and I agree. People are good-hearted, and we should believe in the goodness of people, and we should promote that as a society. And so I don't believe that government should own any property.
Okay. Is there one, we gotta make this quick because we got 5 minutes left.
So you guys have now officially touched on all the topics that I'm passionate about. In addition to my master's in land development and my BA in journalism, I'm also teaching in 3 schools. So thank you for teaching out of state or out of the country last year. Thank you for touching on everything. My question is pretty specific. I've actually participated, trained with state land department. I'm not an expert, but I've seen it up close. You guys are definitely touching on some things that need to be looked at, and I know that. I have a little bit more of a specific question regarding. So, for instance, let me just ask the question. A large proportion of the development that we've seen in the city of Phoenix has been on state-owned land. Probably the best example is Arizona State. All that state farm development, that was all in state-owned land. That was private developers partnering with government institutions to make that happen. Cityscape, state-owned land. State-owned that was transferred to the city, and then the private developers owned the building on top of the state-owned land. Do you guys want to speak to what, if any, public-private partnership should look like in the state of Arizona going forward?
Okay, let's real quick, because we have another question and then we have a couple questions at the
What should that relationship look like?
Public-private partnerships.
I would say generally, public-private partnerships that benefit the majority of people are good partnerships. I think public-private partnerships that pick winners and losers are probably bad partnerships.
Merissa?
When it comes to public-private partnerships, usually it's because there's cronyism involved. I don't know if you know this, but I had a conversation with Sal DeCiccio a few months ago, and he talked about the fact that the city of Phoenix owns a hotel. Why do we own a hotel? Because of the fact that we wanted to create a public-private partnership, And then we lost millions of dollars on it. By the way, we built that hotel across the street from another hotel. That was a privately held hotel, and that hotel now has been suffering. And so not only did we cause a bunch of debt for Arizona, for Phoenix citizens, but we also then killed a business. We killed a family that running that business. So I'm very leery of any type of public-private partnerships. I would rather have a voluntarily funded government that has competition, and just leave that aside. It creates a lot of problems.
Okay, question.
My question was sort of a twist on the right of government to own property, whether it can own property. And I think you had mentioned something about that you're not sure that you would think that it would be better in private hands. I would make the twist on that question of what about perhaps a homestead act, for example, where that land can be transferred directly to people to build homes on.
I actually would be notionally, I would be supportive of a Homestead Act. The challenge you have is that, this 40 acres is really great and this 40 acres is not. And navigating that, I have not yet seen or created myself or heard proposed a system by which that somehow gets worked out, I believe. But at least the idea that people come into this world and should be able to have a little place of ground to call their own and that they can make better, I support that.
I do support the idea that people should be able to have ground that they can call their own and whatnot. As far as the Homestead Act goes, I think it would, I don't want to carte blanche support something like that. I think I'd have to look at the language and see what it's doing. Is it going to take rights away from people? Is it going to solve problems of more liberty for the individual and not less? There's a lot of benchmarks and requirements that I have before I sign any type of a bill. And ultimately, if it does not create more liberty for the individual, and it's not solving a problem in that way, then I wouldn't sign it.
Okay, I'm going to go through a couple questions just quick, so it'll be yes, no, not sure. We won't really discuss them too much unless one of you thinks you really want to discuss it. Are occupational licensing laws in Arizona too strict? Yes and yes. Okay. Should marijuana be legalized? Yes and yes. Should all drugs be legalized? Yes and not sure. I'll let you guys talk about that real quick, because that might be some of the difference there. It was all yeses before. You said yes, Merissa?
Yeah, so I actually prefer decriminalization over legalization, but you didn't give me that option, so.
Legalization.
Yeah, so I don't think the government has a right to tell people what they can and cannot put into their bodies. Also, the fact that we have prohibited drugs that are actually have medicinal properties, I find to be inherently evil. The other thing is that that the majority of our the people in our prison systems has to do with the fact that they consumed marijuana or some other type of drug, and again, that was voluntary. Now, if someone consumed a drug and they became violent, let's punish them for the violence. Let's hold them accountable for that, but not because they consumed something. We should be holding people accountable for the consequences of their actions. The other thing is that when going back to the issue of DCS or CPS, about 80% of the kids, 80 to 87% of the kids taken in Arizona are taken for neglect. And the majority of those people have lost their children over the fact that they consumed marijuana or some other drug. Now, they didn't take into consideration that they provide a safe home for their child. They just took them based on the fact that at some point in their life they consumed a drug, even if it was in high school, and they're now in their 40s. That's an automatic that's an automatic cause for removal of your children. So the fact that we have prohibition has hurt not just the people that are being caged and imprisoned for it, but it's hurting our children. And I have a serious issue with that. I think that we should hold people accountable for their actions and make them responsible for the consequences of their decisions, but not simply because they consume something.
Okay. Noah?
First off, I think the notion that the state is taking away children for high school transgressions is perhaps a stretch. But
I can show you the paperwork.
I'm sure we can get into that. I just
Just a general question.
Yes.
Should all drugs be legalized? Wait, hang on 1 second. Let me answer, then we'll.
Something that I did at 12 to 13 year old, 12 and 13 years old, that I did online is being brought up and used against me to determine whether or not I'm a safe parent for my own 2 kids as a juvenile.
Yeah,
No other circumstances in it, no nothing.
I don't think that's under
As a
debate, because
juvenile.
Marissa's presented a lot of this before, and I would agree with you that the state goes back very far. But what do you think
We
on,
can share the videos, you know,
but hang on, 'cause we still have some
I'd be
more
happy to
questions.
become informed. I've been wrong before.
What about on legalization of all drugs?
Literally, like 99% of the stuff that Merissa said, I agree with it. I don't think we really ought to be punishing people for what they put in their bodies, but rather for the things they do when they make those choices. There are certain drugs, such as meth, that I am unfamiliar. Maybe somebody in this room is familiar with such. Any sort of positive consequence or any sort of good thing for any community or even any individual. And I really don't see why we would include that particular drug, and if there are others like it, in the list of legal drugs.
Okay,
And in that particular case, I might support decriminalization.
okay.
Maybe just a quick question.
Yeah,
So Governor basically declares like state of emergency surrounding like the opioid epidemic. Do you guys believe there is an epidemic, and what are your thoughts around that?
First, I haven't done the research, but I will say that I think our society is over-medicated, and I think what we would call legitimate pharma companies do have a monopoly on drugs and an altering state of minds, and I think it's unfair, and I think that in many cases they've encouraged the illicit use of those things, and so I think that those are all problems. The word epidemic has particular significance in academic circles and stuff like that, so I can't speak to that. But I think correcting our pharmaceutical system and the interplay between drug production and research and retail access, that there's a lot of progress to be made there.
we've got 2 more questions. We have time for basically 2 more questions, maybe 3, if we can go
Were
quick.
you going to that?
Do you want to add to that, Marissa, or?
Sure. So whether or not we have an opioid epidemic, first of all, by the way, I just want to clarify, Jared Moffin is the one that first released a press release on that, and then the governor piggybacked on it, so I found that to be hilarious. Do we have an opioid epidemic? I think that's a subjective question. I haven't researched that specifically. Do we have a drug problem in this country, though, in general? Maybe. When you look at certain numbers, we do. But what I would say is, what we need to look at is, rather than arguing over the semantics of is something an epidemic or is it not, let's look at what's causing those problems and how do we solve them. I think those are the right questions to ask. What is the nature of that, and can government play a role in helping solve that? When you look at the studies of Portugal, for example, they decriminalized drugs, and that solved their problem as far as drug addiction goes, because instead they started rehabilitating people instead of caging them for abusing drugs. And I think that's what we need to look at, is what are the solutions that we need to find as a state and as people and as businesses and as a community to solve this. There's a reason why people abuse drugs, and it usually has to do with something that's been painful in their life, something that they're struggling with. And I think that requires opening up the markets to allow more rehabilitative options, rather than simply just banning things. Let's find solutions, let's not ban stuff.
So I'm more pressed for time, so I just.
Make it real quick. So we
One
can,
of this kind of big issues with the legalization of pot, I know it's in the past recently, but what are your opinions on the government taxing the legalization of safe marijuana? I mean, I'm against taxation personally, but if it gets people out of jail and the government's benefiting maybe using it for public school system or something, what are your opinions on that? Maybe is it separate stuff?
I imagine as libertarians you're probably fairly familiar with the marriage of pragmatic versus ideological. I think vice taxes are bad because it makes government profit when people make poor choices. And I don't think the government ought to be aligned with poor choices. If we call it, I don't even think marijuana is a bad choice, but the notion of, like a lottery, right? Like we have advertisements on the side of the road telling people to play the lottery when it's a bad choice. And that's because government is aligned with that bad choice. So it is not, in reality, if the way that we get people out of jail is by selling people on greater education funding, then I can get behind it from a pragmatic standpoint. But from a pure ideological standpoint, I do not like vice taxes.
If government is to exist, and I preface it with that, if government is to exist, it should exist to protect victims of other victims, not victims of someone else's own choices to themselves. So I prefer decriminalization, but I think that no matter which way, we have to legalize or decriminalize drugs. It's absolutely destroying people's lives, the fact that government thinks that they can place their morality on people. So if the only way to get marijuana to end the prohibition of marijuana is to have legalization with a tax structure, and I did everything I possibly could to negotiate out of it, then I would sign that depending on what the conditions were. Because I think what's more important is the fact that we end prohibition rather than squabble over the taxation. Even though my preference, and I would go to the ends of the earth to end taxation, I think it's more important that we end prohibition.
Very good. Okay, remember, these two guys are speaking as if they were a governor, so the questions that I give both of you guys compliments at a very high level of content here. 2 more questions and then we're going to get out of here. Should all sex between consenting adults be legal even for money? Yes? Yes. Do either of you want to speak to that quickly?
Sure.
I understand.
Government has no place when it comes to sexual relations, when it comes to marriage or any of those things. Anything that happens between 2 consenting adults is between 2 consenting adults. One of my pet peeves is the fact that men are able to trade their labor for money, but all of a sudden when a woman does it, oh my gosh, let's run for the hills, now we have crazy immorality and society's gonna end and whatnot. Why is a man able to trade their labor for money, but a woman is not? That is absolutely ridiculous.
No.
So I think, I will say, largely agree, there are artificial situations that are created by people in which there is duress created, where a woman may nominally be consensual, but in fact is not. And I think government has a place in eliminating those situations, but where...
We're not talking coercion here.
I know, but I'm not even saying that all such situations that a woman would self-report as being coerced. But my basic idea is that I support sex workers if they are in it because of passion for their business.
Okay. And then the last one.
There's one more really important point to that.
Quick though, quick.
Decriminalizing sex work is important to protect victims of sex trafficking. The reason why we have prohibition is exactly what causes sex trafficking to be able to be prolific and cause victims of sexual abuse. And so we must end the prohibition so that we can have our resources focused on protecting victims rather than penalizing someone because she wants to make money.
Okay. Very good. Okay, last question, and then after this, we're going to kind of adjourn the meeting, and then anybody that wants to talk to the 2 candidates can. Should private clubs have the sole authority to select their own members, even if their criteria is discriminatory?
And to smoke.
No, and not sure. Who went first last time? It doesn't matter. No, you go first.
I think there are certain certain divisions that it is immoral for people to make decisions based on, and color being one that I'm particularly passionate about. So, but there are others, and so I am not supportive of that broad.
And I just want to make it clear, this is a private club. So the question is really a right of association question, or the ability to associate with those that you want to associate with. And your answer to that would be no, that people are not free to associate with other people.
It's a slippery slope kind of question, and I'm not, because there's kind of coercion of like forcing association, and there's also like prevention of association. And I have not written a long philosophical treatise on this idea. So I'll say broadly speaking that if there's a group of people that are getting together and some person who is unlike them wants to join, I mean, in general, I just mean to not let them, whether it's right or not, I don't know. But there are certain reasons that I think are just totally abhorrent, and that our society benefits if you are compelled to let that person associate with you or disband your group. So if there are people, you know, if you want to get together and talk about white power and whatever else, fine. I think a black person should be allowed to be in attendance. It's kind of what I'm saying.
But should the government-
So I'm not trying to limit speech. I'm just trying to say that
You have forced association.
Yeah, should the government enforce that? I think that's the question.
This question is really about freedom of association. Do you?
it is about freedom of association and assembly. It touches on a lot of things.
This is in your living room.
Well, it
It's
doesn't
still a
matter.
private place. You're in your living room.
We're talking about private.
And you got a group of people who have yellow eyes. And the rules are only people with yellow eyes come in. So if somebody comes in and they got red eyes, and you say no, should the government have the right to say, hey, I don't give a crap what you believe. This guy wants to be a part of it. You let him in.
I'm willing to say this. This is a position on which I may be willing to
It
evolve
doesn't
myself.
matter
But on
if
day
it's
one,
morally acceptable or not.
yeah.
Is it force?
On day one, I am willing to say that there are things, of which I'm not sure that yellow eyes is one, that the government should actively try and break up or integrate, or whatever the phrase is, those associations. On day one, I'm comfortable saying that. And maybe this is the thing that takes up the next hour or two of my time after the thing.
So, I do believe that we have a right to association from private organizations. However, I am an activist, and what I find is the most effective way to combat what Noah's concern is, which is my concern too. I don't like people being discriminated against. I find it grossly immoral. I choose not to associate with those people. There's very few things that I will block people on my page for, but that is one of them. I have no tolerance for that. But I think that it's best served by, especially with the technology and the innovation we have today. You know, I'm going to get crucified by this by my supporters, but there's one thing that I like about Trump, and that is that he let people feel like they could freely brag about the fact that they are racist. And prior to that, I didn't know those people were racist. And I was associating with people that were grossly immoral in the way that they were treating others, and I didn't know it. And you know, there was people that were saying that they were victims of racism, and I couldn't say yes or no. In fact, a lot of times I argued against that. And once I saw what happened this last election cycle, I was ashamed for not standing up for all those people and defending them, fiercely defending them. And because I think what we saw is that racism, especially, you know, xenophobia, what we're seeing with immigration, these are things that we have as serious issues in our nation. And it's something that's become very apparent. But until you allow someone to say that they are, we don't have a chance to condemn them. We don't have a chance to say that I'm not associating with you anymore. You're a jerk. And the way that you believe is wrong. And I don't think that government should be involved in that. I think that the free market should be able to show that. And if I could say, instead, allow, you know, especially like with Yelp and reviews and whatnot, imagine a company says, we're only going to let white people into our club. Imagine what the response would be on social media. Imagine what the response would be with the protests. Imagine what the response would be. That organization probably is going to have violence come against them even. And I would rather see us unify as people that care about other people and stand up against that, so that we can have a conversation about it, rather than put them into hiding, have racism exist, have people being mistreated, and not being able to have a conversation about it.
I'd like to address my own position, just to perhaps make it clearer or provide some context. Two people in their living room is probably never going to be a compelling reason for government to interfere. But if we imagine a small town where, you know, there's 100 people and 51 of them are white and 49 are not, then if those 51 people have a private group that were based on color or any other thing like that, it would create a problem that I think government would be right to solve.
So in that scenario, let me answer it. In that scenario, you have a victim situation that exists. And my belief is that if government exists, it should exist to protect the victims. And in that scenario, it's not about the right necessarily of association. It's about the fact that this person is not able to get the things they need to sustain their life. And that's a huge problem. And so we would need to make sure that when government interferes, that it's interfering to protect victims against other victims. And I think that's how we solve that.
So I think that's a good point, and I'll just close with the right of association. In the Arizona Libertarian Party, no one can vote in our primary except for registered libertarians. We went to federal court and won that case as a constitutional on a constitutional basis of the right of association, which essentially means that you may want to come into the Libertarian Party as an independent or another voter and choose who the leaders of the party will be, but as the court said, that is strictly up to those people who call themselves libertarians to come together to choose their representatives. So it's a slippery slope.
So just for my benefit, the Libertarian primary is different than
we
the
have
Republican and Democratic
yes,
primary?
we have a closed primary.
One quick question.
And it was one on the right of association is what it was one on.
Should
no yellow-eyed people
should groups of minorities be forced to let like white supremacists be part of their groups?
I think there may be cases in which the opposite argument could be made. So I'm at least willing to say that such a case could exist. And again, I don't think any group, you know, just like that dude didn't have a right to take over the meeting with his rhetoric, but he had, at least at the start, until he gave it up, he had a right to be here with us, right? And I'm using the word right. No, he was violated. We agreed. Yeah, we agreed that he should be allowed to be here with us. So all that to say, I think there are minority groups that perhaps there might be reasons to compel them to allow a white person to be part of their group, but that wouldn't include dominating the conversation.
Okay, one last thing, and we'll let these guys mull around a little bit and talk to people.
Just a point of clarification.
Yes, go ahead.
Out of curiosity, so the Libertarian Party, no one can vote for a Libertarian
In the
candidate
primary.
unless they are a member of the Libertarian Party.
Registered libertarians.
But a registered member of the Libertarian Party.
Correct.
In the primary. But they can accept ballot signatures from anybody who's an independent.
Well, let's put it this way. You're getting into something very complicated. You're getting into something very complicated. We went to federal court to basically ensure that libertarians were picking the person they wanted to represent them. But a few years later, the state of Arizona, the legislature, wanted to make it more difficult for libertarian candidates to appear on the ballot. So while it used to be under the old law, we had to get a certain percentage of registered libertarians to sign our nomination form, like the one I sent around tonight. The state of Arizona changed, essentially, the Republicans to raise our signature requirements by a factor of 10, while keeping theirs basically the same, to make it more difficult. So in order to do that and make it legal, they had to use a concept called qualified signer instead of registered voter, and they changed the laws. It's a complicated story, but basically it was to make our signature requirements higher.
So it's a private club.
But dilutes
The government ruled that the association of people in politics is private, yeah.
But does dilute the philosophical nature of what you were just saying.
Does it
It
support
was
it?
imposed on us.
Yeah.
It was not by choice. It's basically that they began to calculate numbers of voters per district And we are the smallest political party.
It makes it a bit more difficult.
The largest number in the state
Right,
are.
I understand that
are-
practically it would have to happen. So.
Right, the largest number in the state are the independents. And so to get to a situation where they could come up with a number percentage-wise per district that was achievable, it couldn't be done with only our voters. And so they sort of threw in party not declared and independent. That is, people who don't belong to anybody else.
Right.
that
For
we
signature
could
requirements.
include.
So-
But it was imposed on us. It was not our choice, and we
So,
very.
Marissa, would you ballot for a law against something like that?
A law against the current law that we have?
Well, one that would amend it so that,
We've discussed that here
We're
before.
we're in court right now.
Yeah.
We're in
I
court right now.
support partyless ballots. I think it's kind of ridiculous that at the county recorder level and the secretary of state level, that parties are officially integrated into our government. I absolutely support breaking that tie.
Yeah, if you want to talk about more later, I can tell you more of the details.
So-
It's a complicated subject the way they've argued.
So I actually have, I think I actually have, is an affidavit that I submitted to support eliminating that law. So.
so not even amending it, eliminating it entirely.
Oh, it should have, so I personally believe that the Libertarian Party should be able to choose their own candidates outside of anything the government tells us to do. So I find it completely in violation of our freedom to associate, that we can't just pick our own candidates. I don't think government should have anything to do with that.
Yeah, essentially the way the rules are, the statutory law in Arizona, the government runs the parties. So for instance, when I go down to get the voter data, I sign contracts. I have to say if someone gets it, this is what happens. They basically are auditing everything that I do and looking at things that could be violations of laws. Now, I don't want to overboard it, make it sound like it's overboard, and they're watching everything. But essentially the parties, the way the state of Arizona looks at it is the parties are part of their political system. Where when we went to court, the courts clearly said, no, that's not the case. So yeah, we always advocate for less control when it comes to that, because we think what happens eventually is then the parties become part of the problem, and so people don't really get to express themselves. So we become the issue. So it's a bad thing. But anyways, I do want to adjourn. We're adjourned, but I do want to call the meeting, and I want to really thank you guys. And I want to say something, Noah. I've listened to a lot of Democratic candidates, Republican candidates, and I think you two guys would make excellent candidates at the end. You know, just get rid of Ducey and stuff like that. I mean, excellent. Very good.